Good morning, tech experts, writers, freelancers, and creatives all over the Philippines. Welcome to Tao Tuesday. My name is Apple David, your resident Tao Crowd ambassador, and we also have with us Miss Noe Torre, senior editor and group head of August 99. Hi, Noe. Hello. So we have a lot in store for you guys. And again, this is the very first webinar for 2021. To those who have been joining us for the past How Tuesdays, welcome back. But to those who are joining us for the very first time, let me give you an overview about Tao Crowd. Now, what is Tao Crowd? Tao Crowd is the fastest growing freelance network for creatives in the Philippines. This community is for Filipinos by Filipinos. Now, if you're asking, bakit nga ba dapat sumali ako sa Tao Crowd? Well, let me give you two reasons. Two best things about being part of this community. First, we are sending at least 20 gigs every week in our Tao Crowd Slack channel with zero project fees. Amazing, right? I feel that marami sa inyo tumatango dyan. And not just that, you also have a chance to level up within the community and earn benefits along the way. How cool is that? Tama, di ba? Yes, absolutely. And of course, we have this Tao Tuesday every month wherein we and our panel of experts will give you tips and techniques para sa mga freelancers, whether you're already part of the community or aspiring partner pa lang, okay? So this morning, we are streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube, so feel free to ask your questions sa ating comment box. And then the panelists later will be answering all of them. And also, please do tell your friends and your family about our stream for today because we have such an exciting topic. Pero bago tayo pumunta sa ating topic, here is a quick look on how our community grew for the past 6 months. Let's watch this. Very impressive for our budding community of freelance partners. So if you are not a part of the community yet, if you're not a Tao Crowd partner yet, all you have to do is visit taocrowd.com after today's session to know more about the platform and the opportunity waiting for you. And now, I'm sure and I really hope you are as excited as I am to begin our panel discussion. And our topic for today is especially exciting para sa mga writer partners na nanonood sa atin ngayon because our topic for today is Make Your Mark as a Writer. And joining us this morning are three speakers who've been writing for various industries already. So first, I already introduced her earlier. We have Noe, who is here with me right now, and we also have Ian and Cora joining us. So good morning to our speakers and panelists. Good morning.
Good morning, Apple, and everybody else.
Okay, simulan na natin lahat. Kasi I'm sure lahat sila excited na and they have a lot of questions for you guys. So, care to share first, what got you interested with creative or content writing and how did you start your career? How about we start with Noe right here?
Okay, I got really lucky, actually, because I enrolled at the Philippine High School for the Arts as a creative writing major. So I have been more or less writing since I was 12.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a great start. And in college, I started writing for the Philippine Daily Inquirer, the entertainment section, Saturday special, movie reviews, album reviews, and all that. I got into writing because it just seemed natural, I guess. If you are a reader, and I'm sure a lot of the people watching here now are readers, this is something you may want to consider if you haven't yet, It's a natural transition.
Thanks, Noe. How about we move to Cora? Cora, what got you into the creative industry and content writing?
Okay. Just to qualify, I'm really more into content writing. I did not get into creative writing.
Mm-hmm.
I got into communications and professional writing, which is traditional marketing, traditional public relations, journalism, and that went on and still going on, no? But I started at the age of 16, no? So I studied in college. And then, of course, you graduated, you went the round of agencies, newspapers, the Philippine Daily Inquirer, Asian Dragon, ABS-CBN Publishing, and that was my career momentum for decades. And then 5 years ago, I shifted into content writing and marketing. What got me into that? Because okay, I was burned out by the corporate gig. So I said, total, I have some clients naman. I'll go into freelancing, I'll go into consultancy. And working at home 5 years ago, that's when I realized, okay, there's a whole new world to explore in content writing, digital writing, social media writing. Yeah.
Thanks, Cara. How about you, Ian? How did you start your career?
Well, I started in high school because I always enjoyed writing when I was in high school. So I took up communications in college, so UP. And then after that, I also worked in TV. So there's a lot of exposure to like writers, scripts, and all of that. And then after that, I wanted to career shift to marketing because I saw that digital marketing was really, really growing at the time, especially social media. So I shifted careers to become a full-time writer. And then eventually I went into advertising agencies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the flow. And then naisip ko, I thought that, because of all the skills that you get from having worked with big brands, with creative directors and all of that, it's a good jump off point for starting a freelance career.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Ian. Now my question is, we all know that in any career naman, it doesn't always go smoothly. What were the initial challenges or difficulties you experienced along the way before you got to where you are right now, Noe?
Well, I think one of the initial challenges is that people don't always give you feedback,
Mm.
right? You give them something and then you don't hear anything from them, or they print it and they've chopped off half of it and they don't tell you why. So,
How do you handle such um, instances when you don't get anything and just see your work being published with majority of them being cut? How do you react to that?
well, you try not to take it personally, number one, because when it comes to print, for example, back in the day, they have a limited space, right? So if they have to cut it, they will cut it. So it's not personal.
Mm-hmm.
So don't take it personally, and then reach out because people are busy, especially editors. So they won't always have time to give you the details about why they change things. But when you reach out and you ask, they will most of the time
Mm-hmm.
tell you why, which is growth,
Uh-huh.
right? Yeah.
How about Miss Cora? Miss Cora, what were the initial challenges you encountered?
Okay, the challenges back then in print are the same now. Okay, a long time ago when I was starting out, uh, you really learn on the job. I did graduate from Ateneo with a communications degree, but iba pa rin yun eh. You have to be hungry. Back then, I was writing for a lot of magazines, a couple of newspapers, and each magazine, each newspaper, each section would have a different requirement, a different audience, a different style. So, and there is no one book to learn that. So, tama si Noah, you have to ask, you have to study, and always make sure you're on top of your game. Now, going to digital writing, now it's the same thing. You never stop learning. So, for example, in digital writing now, content marketing. So, okay, for example, what are the kind of blogs that are getting traction right now? Are we talking shorter number of words, or they say long form is returning? What industries need content writing more than most? How does SEO get into this? How do uh, yeah, how does SEO get into this? How does analytics get into this? You really don't stop learning. So those are the challenges. You never sit still. You never sit still. Not on, you don't sit on your laurels. You don't stop.
How about you, Ian? Did you encounter the same challenges when you were starting?
I think for me, the biggest challenge, and I'm sure this is true for all the other aspiring freelancers, is getting a foot in the door. Because even when I was working in TV5, I was production coordinator. I wasn't actually a writer or creative. So for me, it's just really getting a foot in the door. And for me, the way to do that, at least in my perspective, was, I find even if it was a low-paying writing job, tinanggap ko siya just to have a foot in the door, just to have a writing body, portfolio that you can show to future clients and to future employers. So it's one of those things I think na parang the biggest I think hurdling biggest block that you're going to encounter as a freelancer is just getting that first writing experience. So that's what it was for me.
Thanks, Ian. Now, finally, for our warm up questions, our panelists, these are just warm up questions, just so our viewers may get more idea and get to know you guys more. So, what are you busy or what are you up to right now? Noe.
Well, right now I am the group head of Writer's Block with August 99 and a senior editor with the same group. So that means I handle the in house writers and editors team and our Tao Crowd partners.
Yes. Thank you, Noe. Now, Cora.
Okay, right now, I'm really more of a consultant, and I guess that's my strength. I write, but I really edit. I manage teams of writers and teams of editors. So I have several clients in the United States. We do the graveyard shift. My writers are all contributors, they're freelancers. I'm the managing editor of Demand Science. It's known in the Philippines. I'm also the multimedia content director, habang Untitled, of a PR company here in the Philippines. And aside from that, there's still side jobs that keep coming in. I mean, God is good.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you really don't stop working.
Ian, what are you busy with right now?
Well, I think medyo interesting yung case ko because I actually started as a freelancer for Tao Crowd, but I was eventually absorbed as full-time sa group ni na Miss Noe. So actually, boss ko si Miss Noe ngayon. So, syempre, there's still like side jobs that still come in. I think unlike before where when you're like more or less full-time freelance, you have more bandwidth to take on projects. Now that I'm in-house, it's more picking and choosing which projects you work on. So it's choosing one or two clients that you're most comfortable working with. That's what I'm doing right now.
Thank you, ladies, and of course, Ian. So I know to our viewers, I introduced our panelists a little casually kanina, but now let me just give you a better introduction of each of them. First, of course, we have Ms. Noe Torre, the senior editor and group head at August 99. Also with us is Ms. Cora Llamas, managing editor at Pure Incubation. And finally, we have Miss Ian Lim, the freelance writer at Tao Crowd. So again, thank you for joining us this morning. So earlier, they shared their journey, how they started, the difficulties they encountered, and what they're doing right now. And thank you also for providing insight to current and aspiring writers. And now I am sure content writers are all ears. So I'd like to ask the real questions for them for today. Okay, so first, how do you spark connection with organizations, with brands, or with people? And at the same time, what is the best platform to connect with people? This time we start with Miss Cora.
When you spark interest, you have to make sure you follow up on that, meaning you're there for the long term engagement. And right now, competition is stiff among the freelancers. Okay. I'm with Ian that we have our network that we built up over the years. But if you're really going to go jump into the freelancing community, okay, right now in the Philippines, and let's say you still have not built up your portfolio yet, you still don't have your name out there, your skills, you're still getting there, the competition can be hard. And I myself have gone through tests, okay, that the clients give, because especially when you have clients from the States and Europe, they don't know. I mean, they really want to find out your skill, so they give you tests. Now, so having said that, what are the best platforms? Well, Tao Crowd is one. LinkedIn for me is the best because it's still your brand. Okay, you put your name there, you put your skill set there, and you connect, and you just connect with people. You just connect with brands. I'd like to maybe Job Street because it's been around also for the longest time, and they have freelancers and full time workers. So basically, that's it. Now, how do you spark interest? When you talk to the brand managers, whoever's hiring, dapat kita yung enthusiasm mo eh. No matter how insecure you feel. So dapat nag-research ka na when you come in. So for example, kasi what you're saying is, I can do this because, I can do IT writing because, I can do food writing because, especially if you don't have a portfolio yet. Okay? So dapat makita nila na, okay, if you have the skill, you have the history. If you don't, then we can work with you because you're as passionate about this field as we are. And then after you get your foot in the door, that's when you really study, study, study. So that connection is extended over the long term. Nakakapagod kasi sa freelancer, and a lot of people know this, start freelancer know this. Minsan, di ba, yung turnover ng trabaho mabilis. Kasi some of them, and I really hate to say this, but some brands kasi, it becomes a price war. I'll employ you now for 3 months, later on I'll get another writer, mas mura siya. But to avoid that fate, you really have to strengthen your relationship, your connection with the brand manager, with the people in that company, and you strengthen not just out of friendship, but out of value, what you can give that nobody else can. So again, yeah, whatever spark you build, maintain that for the longest term, and you always make sure that they see how you're valuable to them. Yep.
Thanks for those tips, Miss Cara. Now, Ian, how do you spark connection, and what is the best platform for you to showcase one's work?
Well, I think for me, the best, and this, I think, from my experience, is always the best place to start your freelancing network is really with the people you currently work with. I always say na, and this is just my personal belief, that kapal ng mukha is a virtue. Because freelancing is all about hustle and being able to, set aside the hiya factor and say, oy boss, baka meron kang project dyan na pwede ibigay sa akin. It always starts there, especially for people that are just starting out, do not have yet a portfolio. I think the best place to start is to tap your network. But if you do have already some sort of working portfolio, I think the best place, platforms in terms of marketing yourself and getting your name out there, definitely you should, at least for me, you should have a portfolio website where you showcase all of your stuff, your social media, your content writing, your infographics, your event scripts, or whatever. I think most brand managers and creative directors tend to look favorably at freelancers who have built a portfolio website, especially because it connotes digital, know-how. I would also agree with LinkedIn, definitely LinkedIn, because I think it's a bit harder to promote yourself on Facebook because you're kind of putting yourself out there with everything. Like you're competing against dog photos and memes, essentially. On LinkedIn, it's essentially just people, professionals trying to network. And from my experience, I tend to get better like response rates if I reach out to people on LinkedIn because that's precisely what they're looking for. It's a business. I think freelancing at the core of it is a business to business arrangement. My business is my writing, and your business is your company, your brand, or whatever. And B2B communications and linking is always going to be better on LinkedIn than Facebook or Twitter. Those are my things. And I think, yes, Facebook does also have Facebook groups. Like, for example, the Independent Creative and Artistic Professionals group. So there a lot of people post there. Like, for example, when I was working in ad agencies, we're looking for freelance copywriters or freelance designers. We would often post freelance job listings there. So that's another space that you can look at. So, and definitely Tao Crowd. I think the great thing about Tao Crowd kasi is para may tiering. The more projects you successfully complete, they give you like ranking. So that's one branding thing that can help you, that you're a top ranked writer on Tao Crowd. That's another thing that can help you get your foot in the door. So yeah, that's fun.
Thank you for your insights, Ian. Miss Noe, how do you build your professional network?
You be like Ian. You be super reliable. He was one of our top writers at Tao Crowd, which is why we offered him a full-time role with Writer's Block in-house. If you haven't yet, if you're really, really new at this, I don't know if they said it already, but you start with the people you know. Especially now, everybody's doing their own little business, their own little side gig. They need content. They need copy. So start with your sister, your brother, your friend. See what you can do for them. And then if it's successful, that's already something you can put on your portfolio. You don't have to be starting big. You don't have to be contacting brand managers if you're not confident yet. So, baby steps, but definitely take a step. And then when you work with people, be reliable. Answer that call, answer that email. If a revision is needed, do that revision. Don't be a diva, in other words.
Don't be a diva.
Yeah.
Thanks, Miss Noe. And now that we are all enlightened about building connection, the next question or the next topic is about how writers should market themselves. So, ano nga ba yung pros and cons of being a writer? And also, is there such thing as branding when it comes to writing? If yes, how do I build my brand identity? Ano, medyo mabigat na itong questions natin. This time, let's start with Miss Noe.
Okay. Well, definitely it would help with your branding if you have your own portfolio website, as Ian mentioned earlier. So make sure that it's streamlined, it's well designed. Everything that you do that's relevant is there. We don't have to put down your childhood poems or anything like that, but definitely whatever you've worked on, and make sure it's readable. If you're sending out your portfolio to people, make sure that it's downloadable and it's not scanned weird, and stuff like that. When we're looking for writers, we get a lot of those portfolios that are really hard to even see because it's just they took a photo of a page or anything like that. So be a little bit more professional. Scan it properly or actually type it up. Yeah, so definitely build a portfolio. That is essential. And when you're writing for other people, you will have to adapt to their tone of voice and their style. So you're not necessarily able to like build your own voice, but if you have your own personal projects, that's where you can let that shine. So if you have creative work, add that to your portfolio as well. If you have short fiction or one act plays or whatever, anything that makes you different from other writers out there would be something that you want to highlight on your portfolio.
Now, the pros and cons of being a writer. Money question.
The pros, if you're an introvert, which a lot of us are, admittedly, then you're by yourself. But that's also a con if you're not an introvert, or the thing about writing is you're in a room looking at a blank page, so it's always a challenge. But at the same time, you get to create something out of scratch, essentially, which is not something that a lot of people can say that they do, right? Here in the Philippines, the cons are that you don't get paid as well as you would want to get paid, all of the time. The value that people place on writing and good copy, good content, isn't yet the same value that they place outside, which is why a lot of the freelancers here are their clients are in the US or elsewhere because locally the value isn't there yet. So that's one of the cons. It's one of the challenges, but we're working on it, I should think. Yeah.
Thanks, Miss Noe. How about you, Ian? Let's start with the pros and cons of being a writer.
Well, for me, definitely the pros is it, it's not that writing is easy, but it's definitely not, we're not frontline workers. We don't have to operate on people or we're not construction people. So I think as far as jobs go, it's one of the easier jobs. It's very fun. It's very creative. And I think a lot of people even the corporate types, they eventually migrate into writing because it's just more fulfilling for the soul to be creative, I guess. Cons, I would have to agree that the rate that people pay for writers is not so good not yet. But I think naman there are platforms like Tao Crowd that definitely from experience I know that they offer definitely above market rate. But I think one note to say also is that, and I have experiences as a copywriter in an ad agency. More senior you get, parang minsan, the more reluctant they are to give you the salary that you want because they can always hire someone that's younger. What I find is that when you're freelancing, there's really no limit to how much money you can get. So it's just your hustle, it's just your drive to find clients. So I think there are pros and cons in terms of like monetary payments, but I think nasa sa'yo yun. It's up to you how to balance that.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of marketing, I agree with Miss No that personal projects, especially if you do not have yet your portfolio. A lot of people look at how creative you are on your social media. A lot of people turn their Instagrams uh, into their parang pet projects. So it gives people a flavor for how you write. There's also I see this in LinkedIn. I think this is an interesting practice for people who want to break into copywriting or agencies, want to freelance for agencies. There's this challenge called 100 ads in 100 days. Every day you create a print ad for a product. So it's not an official ad, but it helps you sharpen your copywriting skills, your ability to differentiate features from benefits and all of that. I think if you don't have yet a portfolio, these creative outputs can help you put your foot in the door and let people see what kind of thinking and what kind of writing you can do.
Thanks, Ian. Miss Cora, pros and cons of being a writer?
Okay, I'll go first to the pro, the psychological fulfillment. For me personally, it's more the intellectual journey.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the creative side, yes, but it's really more what I can learn when I'm writing about something, whether it's IT or business or theater. And once I get into a beat or a section, it's really going to deep dive. Doon ako nag-enjoy. And I agree with Ian and Noe that a lot of writers are introverts. That's why it's easier for us to work at home. Now let's go into compensation because I think that's the foremost question in people's minds, no? Pro, that's true, okay? In the Philippines, it's hard to find clients who will pay you what you're worth. And tama si Ian, as you go senior, it becomes a price war. And how do you mitigate that? Okay, number one, you add value to your writing. Magaling ka na magsulat. Let's say tapos na yon, that's given. But once you're ready your skill, what else can you add? Can you do management? Can you look into other projects that will involve that are based on writing, but not just writing? Let's say pupunta silang website. Okay? Kailangan nila ng web developer. Ikaw yung content writer. Now, kung may kilala kang web developer, hatakin mo na. Ikaw ang mag-project manage. That's how your value rises. And then, because, okay, like in my consultancies, I am the editorial manager. And there are brands who look for that. Na tipong, okay, we don't want to manage these writers anymore. Can you do that? So it's more of adding value because mahirap ang price war. Yung tipong, like, I know some friends, they're already asking me that because of the pandemic daw, prices are going down. Nakakaiyak eh. So the thing is, if you're in need now, and all of us naman are, and you get a lot of projects and the prices keep going down, baka ma-burnout ka. So yun. Now, having said that, I'm also on the lookout, okay? I'm also on the lookout for areas where you do the same kind of work, writing walang ibang value, but you get paid more. Now, I haven't, to be upfront, I'm still exploring. This is something I'm looking at, and maybe the writers who can also look at that. I've heard that some friends, they become niche writers. Like, for example, an old friend of mine, editor ko dati, right now, he carved a niche sa health, sa wellness. And he's been freelancing for, oh my God, for 10 years. And he has audiences, not just in the Philippines, but in Hong Kong and Singapore and the US. And he can charge an arm and a leg. How much? 8,000 pesos for 700 words. And that's in Philippine currency, ha? So, niche na siya. And that's what he told me. Sabi niya, like, he doesn't do a lot of the stuff anymore. He doesn't do architecture. He doesn't do the other stuff. He doesn't do lifestyle. Focus on his health and wellness. Doon na siya nakilala. And I asked him about that. Sabi niya, nung una, mahirap. Because he had to give up the other rackets. But once he's centered on that and people know him for that, that's when the money started coming in. Of course, how we got to that 8,000 pesos for 700 words, it did not take overnight. Now, I don't know that firsthand, but it's something I'd like to go into. Because I really don't like the price war. Naka-burnout eh. Yun.
Ms. Cora, how about branding? Is there such thing when it comes to writing?
Okay, there are two schools of thought. Number one, my own experience, your brand is who you are, your reputation, how you deliver on the job, what you're good at. It's what Noe said kanina, just answer the call, make sure you give what you promised, and make sure it's good, and people will reach out to you. In that sense, I'm a generalist. Okay, a lot of writers are generalists, meaning because we need projects, we tend to be good in a lot of sectors so that people will come to us for anything. In fact, that was my yabang before. Now, whatever you give me time, I can turn around. So, even in a subject na wala akong alam, like golf, my God, pinag-aralan ko yan and I got clients. Now, having said that, that's one. So that was my brand. In fact, there was a time I was called during the print days the Racket Queen. Not an investigative journalist, but the Racket Queen kasi ang dami ko racket. But okay, that's one side. That's my brand. Now, having said that, there's another trend that's happening. And I hear this again from friends or freelancers. They're saying that now is the time daw for niche. For, you build your brand on what you're good at or what you can bring to the table and don't spread yourself thin. Kung magaling ka sa software, di sabihin mo na software development writer slash editor ka. And ang market mo, ganito, let's say startup. And you just focus on that niche and you promote yourself that niche. And it might take time, but the thing is, when word gets around, then the customers come to you. I haven't done that yet. I'm looking into it. But apparently, that's one movement. Okay.
Thanks, Miss Cara. Now to our next question. And I'm sure you mga viewers natin to are asking the same question. It's about building and maintaining an impressive portfolio. Now the question is, what do you write about if you're just starting? So let's start with Ian first this time.
Well, I guess it goes back to to reaching out to your network and finding people that you can be able to write for, just to be able to have something to put in your portfolio. I think part of it is really just being able to. I think everyone knows someone who owns a business. Maybe you can, for example, offer to write, I don't know, 5 social media posts or something, and then that's something that you can already put in your portfolio. So I think the first part is just reaching out to your network. That's never failed for me. Like when I reach out to people, they always somehow I always find a lead or a client that I can work with, and that's how I build up my portfolio. The other thing is if you wanna take a more I guess um, sure route is that you find a job that allows you to write a lot of things. So that's why, for me personally, I started muna with SEO and then I worked with advertising agencies because it does give you the bona fides. Like for example, if you're going to a real estate client and then they know that you work for Mega World or Ayala Land, it's easier for them to give you the project because you can already show work. So I think it's two ways. It's either you do it na DIY, or if the long game is for you to be able to freelance independently, maybe you become more picky or more strategic with what jobs you take now, so that you can build up your portfolio in that job, so that when you leave, you can show bigger clients that you handle big clients in your previous jobs. I think that's one way of building up.
Thanks, Ian. Miss Cora, how do you build and maintain an impressive portfolio?
I don't think I can add na to what Ian said. I think everything's there. Siguro pwede ko na idagdag, especially if you're a new graduate. Don't be shy about putting in your college papers or something you wrote in the online magazine of your university. Every piece of writing counts. Another tip I could give is because there are parameters to this. If, for example, you want to hustle and you really want to prove your worth, ask the brand manager or the hiring manager to give you a test. As in, you're putting yourself out there. You're showing your skill. You're showing what you can do. Of course, there's a chance you'll get rejected, but at the very least, they might respect your courage and your drive. But having said, and there are some brands who pay, I will give you a test and we'll give you 1 peso per word, whether we accept you or not. And that's good. Now, having said that, tatansyahin mo kasi naman there are some companies out there who take advantage. O sige, we'll take you in, but do a test 3,000 words in one day. Kapatid, wag. Because that is already, they're taking even if you don't have a portfolio yet, they're taking your time, they're taking your skill, they're leveraging on your skill. So what? Siguro 600 words is acceptable within 48 hours or 24 hours. But that's one way that you can show your stuff.
Miss Snowy, is there anything you would want to add?
Great advice from everybody.
Mhm.
I would just add, if you have absolutely nothing at all, write about what you're passionate about, whatever that is, because at least that way you're starting with a subject, a topic that you already like. In my experience, it's easier
Mm-hmm.
if you like what you're writing about, and just go from there. Put that out there, see if it looks good, give it some time to cook. Yeah. And definitely say yes, even if you're not confident about something. Um, a lot of writers are their own worst critics. So if the little critic in your head is saying, "Oh, you don't know enough about that topic. Oh, you're not good enough for that yet. Maybe don't say yes to this project." Shut that little critic up and just say yes to whatever it is. Um, in my experience, it's always worked out, especially if you have the drive to just learn about whatever that is that you need to learn about. You push through it, you do it, and good things shall happen. Yeah.
Thank you very much, panelists, for all your tips and advice. Now, what is your forecast for the freelance writing community in 2021, this year and beyond? Mascara?
Okay, tough question. Number one, I think a lot of potential writers, present and future, would really boom because of the pandemic. Because let's face it, the economy right now is just reopening. Jobs, a lot of jobs have been have disappeared. People are uncertain about the future, so freelancing is gonna boom because whatever you can do, especially if you have a skill, you'll really seize it. Now, in terms naman of what skills are will be important, this much I can say, no, given what I know from marketinginteractive.com, I'm the editor of that website pala, and have staff. The research says digital marketing will boom, and that is social media marketing, content marketing, a bit to do with analytics. So yun, brands and companies will be looking for writers who are good in that area. And they may not necessarily look for full time because they're also conserving the resources. So they're more open right now to hiring freelancers. So digital writing is the way to go, especially since last year.
Thank you, Miss Cara. Miss Noe, your forecast?
Yes, I agree. It's gonna be big. If you want to get into it now. Businesses of all kinds and all sizes need content, and they don't always have their own in-house content team. So if you have the skills, there are people looking for you right now, including us. Tao Crowd, we have a lot of projects coming in from our clients because of the pandemic, also, and because of the shift towards digital. A lot of businesses are now online, and this is going to be probably a thing that's going to be here for a while, if not forever. That shift is going to be permanent. People who've gone online now, they're going to be online forever. So now would be the time to get into freelance writing if you've been thinking about it.
Finally, Ian?
I definitely agree that freelancing is going to boom in this new normal age that we find ourselves in. I think if you're trying to freelance, there are definitely certain sectors that are worth paying attention to. Like one, for example, is definitely real estate. We know that in Tao because a lot of our clients is real estate. There's a lot of clients who need websites or website content because property prices are increasing. I also definitely think clients in e-commerce are going to be an interesting sector to target for freelancers. I say this because a lot of our clients before in my ad agency that did not do e-commerce are now forced to do e-commerce whether they like it or not. So FMCG, packaged goods, all of that, they now have to have some sort of website, social media content, and all of that needs copywriting. Another thing that you might want to look into if you want to break into freelancing is a lot of ad agencies are looking for freelance writers also. So that means contractual work for pitches and all of that. So you might be able to break in. And ang benefit now is that when you write, for example, write for an FMCG brand, that's already a big brand. So that's also something that's portfolio worthy right from the get-go. Another thing that I hear is, something that personally I'm interested in is UX writing. I think it's one of the better paid jobs. So, for example, if a client is an app, there's only so much real estate in a small screen, right? So there's a lot of psychology and creativity that has to go to, what you put on, what copy you put on this little call to action button. There's a lot of, and that's a highly paid skill. The other thing I definitely think freelancers should learn this 2021 is the concept of personalization. Because, for example, social media ads, you can really target them according to niche. So, for example, get used to rewriting the same ad from the prism of five personas because you can target each ad to a specific segment. So that's one skill I think that if you apply for a social media job and you tell them that you're well versed in personalization writing, that's going to give you an advantage.
Thank you, Ian. O, di ba, sa mga writers and creatives na nanonood sa atin ngayon, I know it's a very challenging time across the globe, but there are a lot of opportunities still for us to show our talents and our tribe. And I think we can all agree na Filipino talents are becoming more competitive than ever. And we all just want a chance to book more gigs and projects to welcome the new year. And speaking of booking projects and gigs, Miss Cora already touched on this a while ago. What suggestions do you have on what industries writers should focus on and how can they book more projects this year? Miss Noe.
Okay, industries. It depends. But definitely, as Ian mentioned, real estate is booming.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there are a lot of jobs or job postings anyway for real estate related content, both here and abroad. Also, fintech. I've been turning it down a lot personally, but there are a lot of fintech people who need content that an ordinary person can read. So if you're into that, Bitcoin or any of the other platforms that are related to fintech, then this is something that has a definite need right now. So those are the two main industries that I can think of. But essentially, right now, it's everybody. So just cast your net wide, I would say, and take a look. Sometimes they're not actively looking, but they have an active need. So definitely, if you know people already in whatever industries, just reach out to them and say, do you guys have any content needs? Most of the time they actually will. And, they're just not posting it, but they actually will have a need. So just reach out and ask.
Thank you, Miss Noe. Ian?
I think in terms of industries, I've already discussed that. But yes, I think keeping your mind open to different industries is definitely the way to go. I think when you're beginning kasi as a writer, you start as a generalist, and then as you progress and you find the kind of beats that you enjoy the most and play the most, that's when you become, I guess, more of an expert. But I think right now there's a lot of opportunities, so I think don't limit yourself to that. You need to try to explore the different industries, like real estate, e-commerce, and all that. So yeah, definitely, I think just keep an open mind for freelance opportunities.
Miss Cora, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, just two industries. One, health and wellness. This I've heard from friends who are freelancers. During the pandemic, when everybody was scrambling for rackets, the ones already established in health and wellness, their clients are pharma, doctors, clinics, whether here or abroad. They were making money because everybody wanted about health and wellness, diba? And that will not disappear. Whether or not we get the vaccines this year, whether Corona disappears, people are becoming more aware now of the fragility of life. At the same time, they want to improve their lifestyle so they can be happier with their family, so they're not threatened by whatever advice comes their way. Health and wellness is booming. Add to that telemedicine, which is a new sector. Now, I'm gonna build on what Noe said. Yes, fintech is in demand, but let me take it one step higher. Anything that has to do with tech is in demand. So we should stop thinking of tech as IT and it's only the IT people who do that or we need technical writers. No, because every industry right now, especially the legacy industries, they're transforming. You have banks going into fintech. You have restaurants going into food tech. You have schools right now, di ba? People are they're not sending their kids to campus, so they're going to edutech. So if you're a writer and you can layman and you can understand the technicalities and laymanize it for a particular sector and help them get more clients in this challenging era, you're gonna hit gold. That's how I see it. Anything to do with tech, laymanize it.
Again,
and health and
a
wellness.
big thank you to our panelists for sharing your time and your expertise with us this morning. We're about to move to our Q&A, but before we go into that, to our viewers, you still have a little more time to type in your questions, whether it's on the YouTube or the Facebook chat boxes. Go ahead. We'll give you more time to do that. And while you do that, we will pause for a short break. Don't go anywhere. We will be back. Welcome back to Tao Tuesday. My name is Apple David, your host, and we still have our panelists with us, Ms. Noe, Ms. Cara, and Sir Ian, and we are now ready to entertain your questions. So first question goes to Ms. Cara. How was the transition from print to digital? Were there any adjustments and initial differences between the two mediums?
A lot. Uh, and I'm gonna say this slowly so I don't miss out on anything. Tradition. You always have to be effective as a writer, as we discussed earlier. You have to think of your market and your platform, and how you're effective in that platform. In traditional media, let's take first na lang muna to newspapers and magazines and the press releases that come out in this in the print sector and sometimes in the online news agencies. Yan straight text lang yan. I don't mean it the way it sounds because you still have to write well, you still have to be cohesive, you have to know how to write with maximum impact. But when you put that into words, you're just thinking of the text, okay? Simple text lang yan. You're not even thinking of visuals. Unless it's a magazine, then you think of the photographer of the photos that are going there. So it's more word-based, it's more audio-based. Now, having said that, when you go into digital marketing, and Ian and Noe can correct me on this, you think of a lot of things. You think of search because your audience out there on the internet. They have to search my copy. They have to find my copy. You think of hyperlinks because that is what will increase the links. You have to think of semantic keywords. That's apparently that's growing now. You have to think of images. And do you think of video? Do you think of infographics? And then what's the word count? It's no longer automatic na sabi nila 700 words. Right now, long form is returning. So, iba na yung dimensionality. And for that, you need a new way of thinking. Now, just to give you a broader picture, even before in print and magazines and newspapers, meron namang sections. For example, if you immigrate from business to lifestyle, it's an entirely different ballgame. The language is different, the audience is different, but the community, the format is the same. Parang ganito yan. Parang if you're writing for business and you went into lifestyle, it's like you lived in Manila and you moved to Baguio or Camarines Sur. The dialect might be different, the community nuances might be different, but you're still Filipinos. You're still living in the Philippines. But if you immigrate from traditional to digital, and you think of all the other differences, and you adjust your way of thinking, you adjust your way of writing, it's like immigrating from the Philippines to Hong Kong. That's how I tell my team. It's an entirely different ballgame. So yes, there will be adjustments and we have to keep on learning because the internet is there, digital is accelerating, and we just have to keep on adjusting. The more agile we are as writers, the more we'll be in business. That's one thing that's hold true over all the years.
Thank you, Ms. Cara. Now, next question is for Ms. Noe. Ms. Noe, should I include my personal essays in my writing portfolio, even if it's not related to the job or project I'm applying for?
Definitely. As Ms. Cara mentioned earlier, every piece of writing counts. So it helps flesh you out for whoever is going to be hiring you or working with you. It helps flesh you out as a writer for them. So even if it's for a business related gig, definitely include all of the things that you worked on already before. Put it up there on your website or your portfolio. Don't stuff your portfolio, obviously, but show a full range. That's better than just showing one kind of writing. Definitely.
Thank you, Miss Noe. Next question this time is for Sir Ian. What is the writing style writers should follow or know by heart? Hmm.
Well, I think writing style really depends on the client. Some clients are more like, the tone of voice of Wendy's is very different from Burger King, is very different from McDonald's, is very different from Jollibee. So I think the writing style will really depend on who your client is. That said, the fundamentals of writing should be there already, so that your grammar, your syntax, and all of that style. But I will say that if you want to be a freelance writer, even if you're not going to ad agencies or anything, I think it's worth really studying the art of copywriting,
Mm-hmm.
because no one writes to be ignored. And copywriting is the antidote to being ignored as a writer. So I think copywriting has very transferable skills, whether you're writing short form, social media, long form, or whatever. I think the techniques that you learn in copywriting will help you become a better writer overall. So that's I think a key skill that all writers should know.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sir Ian. Now, another question from Miss Noe. Is blogging and content writing one and the same?
Well, more or less, but not really. That doesn't really answer the question. Um, I suppose if you're blogging for yourself and you're doing content writing, then that would be different. Because if you're doing content writing that's for a client, you have to adapt to their tone of voice, their style, whether they want to be conversational, first person, or whether they want to be more formal and more business-like. So there is a difference. That's the thing that a lot of new writers have to get used to, is that you have to take yourself a little bit out of the equation. So whatever style you currently have, you have to abandon it and take on whatever style the client has or wants to have. So that's the main difference, really.
We have a follow-up question on that. How often should I create and share content in my blog or website?
Well, it depends on you. But right now, I would say at least do it once a week because a lot of people are online.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, while people are captive, while you have an audience, now would be a great time to reach them. But do not force it. Quality is important. Just don't post for the sake of posting. Post when you actually have something to say. There's already a lot of trash out there. We don't want to clutter up people's feeds, right? We want to give quality stuff. So just think about the quality first before you post.
Thank you very much, Miss Noe. Next question for Sir Ian. Should I practice and learn copywriting and SEO writing too?
Well, I think yes. I think I answered that in the previous question. But I think on a point on SEO is that this is the reality of commerce now, is that people are very search driven. I think 91% of people research their purchase online with a Google search first before they decide to visit the store or to call the store. So definitely learning SEO is one of the skills that you definitely have to learn. I think a lot. It also gives you certain advantages because if you know the fundamentals of SEO, you'll also be able to learn how to write PPC ads, pay per click. So that's another income potential. It's another freelancing opportunity for you. And I think SEO is going to be here for the long haul. So you might as well learn it now so that it opens more job opportunities for you.
Thank you, Sir Ian. This time to Miss Cora. How do I transition from one field of expertise to another? Example, from fashion to parenting or travel to
Okay.
finance, etc.
First question is, you have to ask yourself, why do you want to transition? Because the reasons for transitioning will determine your level of commitment. Okay. One thing about a generalist, if you're a successful generalist and you can handle 5 to 6 or even 5 to 7 beats, yes, you can attract a lot of clients. Yes, you can make money, but actually, given kasi, I mean, you can only go so far. Kumbaga sa dagat, you can go beyond siguro 10,000 fathoms, no? Kasi ang dami nun eh. You only have so much bandwidth. You only have so much time to study. So siguro you can if a skill were an ocean, you can only go as far as 10,000 leagues under the sea. Whereas kung niche writing ka, like some of my friends, they can go 20, 50.
Okay, so we have more questions coming in, this time from Facebook. We have a question from Gianna from Pasig. There are times when hold on. There are times when I lack motivation to create, especially during the pandemic. What inspires you to keep writing? Anyone can answer. Maybe Miss Noe?
It's our job. But no, I feel you. I know what you're talking about, right? That's the name of the group, Writer's Block. It's meant to be a little bit ironic. But when you're at that place, when you just feel very meh, you know, all you have to do is just start something. I would suggest free writing. Just put a pen on paper, and if you haven't done it yet, free writing is excellent for trying to get the creative juices flowing again. And just write nonstop without thinking for like a minute to 5 minutes. So that's a good exercise to do when you're stuck. Or go out, take a walk. I mean, safely, of course.
With your mask.
Get out
and
of your
face
little
mask.
room. When I have writer's block, it's usually because I'm in this little room, and I've been looking at the screen or the page for 2 hours and nothing's coming out. You have to shake yourself out of the current state that you're in. So that's, I guess, two of the things I would recommend that you do.
Thank you for that, Ms. Noe. Next question, also via Facebook from Kaiser Philip Ancajas. I wonder if these tips could work with creative writers out there too. All the tips. Ian, Sir Ian.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think all writers by breed are creative. Because I think that I guess my question to the question is that what is the context? Is he a creative writer? Say, for example, a novelist trying to break into copywriting. A lot of people are like that. A lot of people are able to parlay their creative writing skills into copywriting precisely because what you're doing is you're trying to find a story within an otherwise prosaic product. Like, for example, cigarillo or, I don't know, toilet paper. If you're able to apply your creative writing and your different perspective when you write about otherwise boring products, that's definitely an advantage for you because it doesn't come easily for people. And if you have a creative writing background, you're able to extract kind of an insight or a truth out of a product, create copy out of that. I think that's definitely an advantage.
Thank you. Next question from Rudy Rojas of Pasig. Mas okay ba maging in-house writer kesa maging writer sa isang ahensya?
Pwede ko bang sagutin to?
Go. Go ahead, Sir Ian.
I think it depends on what your motivations are. There are people who have built like really, really long careers that like they retire in advertising. But a lot of my friends that I know enter into advertising so that they can get the skills so that they can eventually become consultants. Because I think there are pros and cons to working in advertising. Definitely, one of the pros there is that you get to work with big brands. You get to work with a creative director who will mentor you. You develop a lot of skills like writing adjacent skills like project management, presentation, building client relationships, and all of that. So that's one advantage. However, the downside to that is very punishing yung hours. Like for example, 16-hour days, like tatlong araw back to back or tatlong araw kang hindi okay. So I guess but my question again goes back to motivation. If you want to learn the skills that an advertising agency can teach you so that you can eventually become freelance, that's a good idea. But you have to be able to, to dig in your heels when the going gets tough. That would be my answer.
Thank you, Ian. Next question this time from Manuel Opensivo via Facebook. How can a freelance writer include his or her sample works in a portfolio if it is covered by an NDA? Miss Noe?
Well, I would reach out to the agency or whoever it is that you signed an NDA with. and ask them if you can include excerpts.
Mm-hmm.
If it's very strict, maybe they'll say no. But if there's room for flexibility, most of the time they will say yes. Just you don't have to show the whole thing, but excerpts. So you can actually get a yes from people most of the time, even if you've signed an NDA. All they want is to make sure that you're not claiming the copy or the content as your own because it's theirs, they own it, right? So, but for portfolio purposes, they're usually flexible. So just find out if you can include excerpts.
Thank you for that, Ms. Zoe. Next from Rachel de Mesa of Rizal. What if you accept a writing assignment that's kind of boring or far from your comfort zone? What tips would you have for writers to get the job done and done well? Mm. Um, let's have Miss
Well,
Cora.
Okay, the very fact you accepted it, even if you don't like it or not, or you're bored by it, you have a motivation. So stick to that motivation. If you need it to earn money, then do a good job at it. If it's something you want to learn, then let that passion fuel you. And how do you build up the interest if it's really boring? Find something there in all your research that will excite you. Para you're not dragging your feet every time you go to your laptop. Yep.
All right. Next question via YouTube. This time from Pauline E. What are the trusted resources we can use to improve our writing in general, books or websites? Anyone? Mr. Wade?
Well, if you want a style guide, there are so many out there. But with the team right now, we're currently using the AP style book, which is what the press uses usually. Because the Chicago Manual of Style is just a little bit too formal for me. So I prefer the AP style book. Right now, I am really enjoying Benjamin Dreyer's English. So he's the Random House copy editor. So that is a really great style book if you want to get started on just finding out, how not to use words, how to how to use a semicolon, etc. Right? And just read whatever you can get your hands on would be my advice. Don't limit yourself to just reading one or two genres or newspapers or magazines or whatever. Read whatever you can get your hands on. The more you read, the more you expose yourself to different styles of writing and the more you learn what it is that you want to be as a writer. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Ms. Cora, is there anything you would like to add to that?
No, actually, I also do APA, and you can't beat that.
Ian?
well, I think there's definitely a few books that I recommend. One is How Not to Write Bad by Ben Yagoda. It just teaches you the basics of grammar and syntax. You don't have to be a great writer at the beginning. You just need to have a strong fundamental understanding of the language, English. Another one that I find is my personal favorite is Reading Like a Writer by Francine Prose because it really teaches you how to dissect writing on a word by word, sentence by sentence, and paragraph by paragraph basis. It's like getting a peek into the mind of the writer. And I think another one that I found surprisingly was helpful for me was reading advice columns because advice columnists have a way of really writing that's very diplomatic but very straight to the point. They are able to express really complicated advice in a very straightforward, objective manner without being without feeling cold or unkind. So I think that's one thing that I found surprisingly helpful was reading advice columns from like Dear Prudence, yung mga ganun. That's one thing that I found was interesting.
Thank you, Sir Ian. Next question, this time from Lorraine Lazaro, Lorraine Lazaro. If you started as a copy editor and want to move to copywriting, what would be a good way to start? And would that be a good starting point as exposure to different businesses? Anyone?
Being a copy editor.
Mm-hmm. If you started as a copy editor and you want to move to copywriting.
Usually in our experience, it's the other way around. Or people usually start as writers instead of editors. But Well, yeah, those are two different skill sets, right? But they are complementary and they are related. So, I guess if you haven't done any actual copywriting yet, then I would start with a client who doesn't have a lot to lose or who doesn't have really high benchmarks yet. But if you're already a copy editor, you're already starting from somewhere. You're not starting from scratch. So you already know what works and what doesn't in terms of at least the basic language, right? And maybe Ian can he can probably answer this question a bit better. So
Ian, if could also ask you, would that be a good starting point as exposure to different businesses, starting as a copy editor and transitioning to copywriting?
I think I echo Miss Noe's answer that I think typically people start as a writer before they move on to an editor. But maybe the person is asking, because I have worked with people who only copy edit, as in grammar, syntax, all of that, punctuation. That's the only thing they check. It's not necessarily checking for brand voice, for tone, for style, for impact. It's just will this pass para siyang human, I guess, grammarly.com person. Baka ganun yung sinasabi niya. If that's the question, then definitely yes.
Mm-hmm.
At least you have a good understanding of the mechanics of the language. But I will take additional copywriting classes or copywriting courses to be able to make that leap from just being a copy editor, checking if it's grammatically correct, to writing things that will actually make people click or buy. I think there's a skills gap there that can be filled with copywriting classes.
Thank you, Ian. Next question from Jessa May Fronda. I'm actually aiming for a new career by being a freelancer, and I want to start it in being a content writer. I would like to ask if what steps or recommendations I may hear from you.
well, I think we already mentioned number one, build a portfolio definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So before we look at a resume, for example, we look at the portfolio first. The resume is second. People don't really care where you went to school. They care whether or not you can do the job if you have the chops. So definitely build your portfolio, number one. And number two, put the word out that this is something that you're doing. Not you want to do, but that you're doing, even if you don't actually have any clients yet. I know it's very, for some people, they find it jahe if they haven't been published or if, they haven't had any clients to say, oh, I'm a content writer, I'm a writer, I'm a copywriter. Get over that and say, I am, be confident. You put yourself out there and see where there are jobs, because there are.
Okay, so for our final question of the day, it's coming from Joseph Ragasaho Jeronimo. How editors, writers handle stress in terms of dealing with their clients? Maybe all of our panelists can answer this. Let's start with Miss Cora. How do you handle stress in dealing with your clients? Maybe Ian. Ian.
I think first of all, as much as you can, parang try to get a feel na if the client is going to be easy to work with or hard to work with. I think there are definitely red flags from people. Like, for example, simula pala, binabarat ka na. I think stress ka talaga doon in the long run. But in terms of dealing with the stress, like for example, revision requests, I think you have to accept that that's part of the job. Part of it is really just not being able to take things personally. Parang I read in one book na parang as a freelancer, you have to treat yourself as a business, and businesses don't have feelings. Businesses do not get insulted when the client asks them for a revision. I think it's also worth noting that this is I think para client feedback is a learning opportunity for also client management, because you have to be able to get at the heart of what the client is trying to say, even if they're upset, even if they're demanding. You have to be able to tune that out and able to zoom in and focus on what it is that they want to be revised, what is it that they want to be done, what is it that they want to see. So I think that's a learning opportunity. But definitely, if you can screen your client and get a feeling for something, that's definitely would be helpful.
All right, thank you very much, Ian. Ms. Zoe, finally, how do you deal with stress or stressful clients?
You have a room in your house where you can scream your head off. But no, seriously. I like Ian's answer actually, which is you try to preempt it by not getting the stressful clients at the beginning. You try to screen them. Okay. But obviously, if you already have them, number one, you should have a nicely written contract that protects you a little bit from project creep, from multiple revisions, so that you're not spending 2 weeks on what should have been a 2-day project, right? So getting your contract for that project spelled out in a way that protects you is something that I would recommend freelancers do. And definitely try to find out what the real problem is. A lot of the time, people get angry, but they don't have the vocabulary to say what they really want to see. You know, what the change is that they want to see. They're just gonna go like, "Oh, I don't like it. Why don't you like it?" And they can't tell you. So you have to learn how to ask the questions to get to the why. So is it the tone? You know, is it too young? Is it too old? We have a client recently who just says we need classier words. Okay, so but they're the client, right? This is their content. So what you want to do as a writer is to find out what it is that they really want. So I would recommend that you have a questionnaire. You have a client questionnaire, you have a content intake form of some kind, which is what we have with August 99. So you come up with that so that at least you get the answers at the beginning before you get started on the project. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. No. And finally, we have Ms. Cora. Ms. Cora, how do you deal with stress brought about your clients, or how do you deal with stressful clients? All right. I think Sir Ian and Ms. Noe answered pretty much all of our questions at the same time, Ms. Cora as well. So that ends our Q&A again. Thank you very much. A big thank you to our panelists, Ms. Cora, Ms. Noe, and Sir Ian. And that ends our topic discussion for today, making your mark as a writer. And so I hope our audience enjoyed everything and learned a lot. And I hope you apply all the tips and techniques our panelists shared with you this morning. Again, my name is Apple David. See you all next Tuesday or on the next Tao Tuesday. Have a safe day and God bless you all.